Welcome to the Juice Consumer Direct podcast. I'm Nate Clegg here with Jake Thorpe, Carson Poppenger, and Justin Jump. And today we're talking about when to outsource your call center and what to look for in an outsourced call center. So Carson, why are we talking about this?
Well, that question comes up a lot with the clients that we work with. You know, they may have had their own center at some time in the past. They've had their own internal group working on it, or maybe they've used a different outsourced center. And that's when they're trying to have a discussion with us to decide how we're different from what they've done in the past. And I think what we want to just talk about really is like the pros and cons of outsourcing your sales center or your call center especially for the work that we do, which is contact qualification and conversion to sales opportunity is really like what we do. So,
Yeah, when we are at our very best, like you just said, we're a part of that front end of the call. And typically our clients represent a sales organization. That's kind of what we do. We help enable these sales organizations. And so what we are able to help them with is allow them to really focus on what they do well, right? So if they're a mortgage company, well, now they can focus on their mortgage officers instead of what they typically have as the setters, right? The people at the front end of the call who are generating that. And I think that kind of highlights one of the things that you're looking for when you're trying to outsource or decide to outsource. Am I becoming a call center company or am I still a mortgage company? What do I want to be, right? And what this allows you to do is say, hey, does somebody else have the knowledge base or the scale or the expertise that will allow me to do this faster and cheaper and in a more profound way than if I do it internally, right? And it can be difficult sometimes to know when that balance happens. When do I kick over or not? But I've always kind of thought that if once you get to about 100 call center agents, that's a business unto itself. That's like a whole project all in its own.
Well, if you think about it, like if your operation, your team that you've been for the lead volume that you have and the size of the staff that you have, if you're making 10,000 calls a day, wouldn't it make sense to work with someone who does 100 times that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. And we end up seeing a lot more things as a result too, right?
Yeah.
So our expertise has been honed over many years, over many accounts and many experiences. So we have a way better idea of what's going on. And we've also failed a lot along the way, right? That's inevitable. You've been in business long enough, you're going to make missteps and those things are going to be costly. And they're going to be hard and you're going to have to overcome them. Well, guess what? If you work with a group who's already made those mistakes or already reached kind of some of the price points that you get when you scale, you get to benefit from that shared experience so you don't have to make those same sort of mistakes.
I think when our partners are deciding if they should nearshore, onshore, outsource, or build their own center, there are a lot of different priorities that they have to probably rank, measure, and prioritize. Some of the things that I think they consider based off of my conversations with them are cost, not just the cost of the outsourced partner, but the cost of having something in-house, the labor, the SG&A, the management, and the software that it takes to have a real scaled solution. But something that I think is often overlooked or not given enough weight is the experience that those customers are having with whoever is representing your company. We've talked about this a lot. Whoever you partner with is really an extension of your brand. If it's any sort of branded interaction, that interaction is going to reflect on your company. It's going to reflect on the loan officer or salesperson that we transfer to. So ensuring that customer experience is up to your company standards is essential because it needs to have a really seamless path to closing. And oftentimes, because we're looking for a low-cost option or we're looking for something that's more cost-effective, we fail to realize that your sales center or your partner can actually be an asset instead of a cost center.
Yeah, this is one thing that I like about us and kind of telling other people about us is that we don't really represent a cost center. I mean, we do. I mean, there's expense obviously attached to us, but we're really a profit center. For every dollar they spend with us, they get a $12 in return, right? So that's kind of a fun thing for me to be able to do when I'm representing our brand to other people. And you did talk about, it's interesting, a lot of times when people are first getting into this and they don't have as much experience with a call center, a lot of our clients already do, right? They have something in-house, they've built things in the past, so they're not as naive about this, but they'll think, oh, and in a previous life, I sold, BPO type seats, traditional hourly seats. They'd be like, oh, that hourly expense is a lot. I can just hire that same person internally for the same cost. I'm like, all right, well, did you think about the manager? Do you think about the team lead? Do you think about the QA? How much is your dialer going to cost? What's your long distance cost going to be? And then facility costs and, like you said, the SG&A sort of things. And they totally forget to even consider all those things. You add it all up, and it's usually significantly more. But the biggest cost, I want to just echo what you said. The biggest cost, though, in doing something that's low cost, not well thought out, is typically going to be the cost to the consumer in terms of what it means for their loyalty to your brand, as well as the amount of revenue that typically comes with those future interactions that you're going to have with them. Especially with our financial groups that we work with. Lines of businesses, the more lines of businesses you have with that person, obviously the greater the value that represents the brand, but also the greater the amount of loyalty that engenders as well.
I think one thing that you're kind of hitting at is like opportunity cost, that comes from having maybe a low cost solution. Our agents that we have on our team are paid base rates, base wages plus commissions, right? And bonuses and all kinds of incentives and things like that. But I always tell the team that agent that's not earning any bonuses and not earning any incentives and isn't hitting their performance targets, they're our most expensive employee.
They really are.
Even though their check may be a fraction of what the other people were paying is, they're the most expensive. And that's because they just are missing opportunities all over the place. And so when you have a solution that's maybe, sometimes when we're talking with our clients, the VPs of marketing and the sales executives and things like that, they understand that pretty clearly. The accounting teams that they work with maybe are just looking purely at the numbers.
They're
like,
understand.
oh, this is cheaper. Go with the cheaper option, But the cheaper option can be the most expensive option. And it's definitely the most inefficient. And so efficiency is everything for us. It's everything to our clients, making sure that we're efficiently contacting and converting sales opportunities is like paramount.
Yeah, like efficiency. I think you talked about that. Nate and I traveled to Denver a couple weeks ago, and we sat in on a panel, and the panel was talking about effective lead routing strategies and how to make sure that your leads are treated the way that they should be to create an experience that's good for the brand and good for closing. And it was kind of funny. We didn't pay them, but they said, hey, one thing we would recommend, and it was an AVP for a very reputable company. You should use someone like Squeeze. That's what he said. And he said, because your salespeople are salespeople and they don't want to prospect. So let the experts prospect and deliver sales opportunities to the guys that can close them.
But there's only one Squeeze, though, so you can't use someone like Squeeze. You have to use Squeeze.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Right.
Well, there's another guy in the panel who he was at other like mortgage companies, but now he works with a software group. But he then echoed it. He said, "Yeah, working with somebody like Squeeze can really help you," which means work with Squeeze, and it makes a big difference for sure. It was pretty cool to be there and see them kind of plug us a little bit. So
yeah, I know a lot of salespeople don't view prospecting as a revenue generating activity. They do it either half-heartedly, or oftentimes they don't even have the tools to efficiently do it. They might not have an auto dialer or a synced up CRM to the dialer. They might be dialing from their cell phone. All sorts of things can happen. They might be making 20 dials a day and hoping that that's enough. They want to close deals. Yeah. Salespeople want to generate revenue with their activities.
They want to have a meaningful conversation with the real prospect that's ready to have that discussion. Mm-hmm. That's really what it comes down to. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the reasons that I come across when I talk to people about whether or not they want to outsource, especially a function like what we are, that kind of front end of the sales call, sometimes they're reluctant because they're like, hey, I want to build value with my own brand. I'm building this up. I'm going for an evaluation. And they're concerned that if they use a third party for this function, it represents a decrease in their brand value. And then it's really interesting to see brands who are on the other side of that. They've gone through the evaluation. They've kind of gotten to big enough to the point where they've gone public or had some sort of larger exit, and they have no problems using us as their outsourced group. And so I think sometimes those evaluations, I don't really think that they should be afraid of outsourcing pre-evaluation, because I think it demonstrates wisdom and an ability to really create streamlined processes and cost-saving measures ahead of that. So that is one reason why sometimes people don't outsource, but I think that's probably an error, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I think one of the big concerns, especially with those, like you mentioned, large corporations that we work with, the tribunal that you have to go through to be approved as one of their partners is insane. It took us almost a year to get onboarded with a few of our partners and they're big ones. Yeah. So if you are going to decide you have to outsource in one way or another with a strategic partner, which is what we position ourselves as, make sure that you vet them very, very thoroughly. Things like, our recent episode with Vince, data security and SOC 2 certifications. Like, make sure that your data is safe because it's an asset, and that you've got a team that you can trust and that can back that up with, evidence that they're doing the things that they need to protect your brand.
Well, and I think to your point earlier, right? Like, this is their brand, and if you're wanting to try to hire somebody offshore or inshore, whatever it may be, there's a risk assessment that's going on, right? And you're trying to take on as little risk as possible, and you have to. That's a long process, and you got to make sure that it actually does fit your needs, and that you're going to get the ROI out of it that you're putting into it. So,
and I've done a lot of work in offshore, and there's a place for it, but it has to do with what they're doing. It has to do with the complexity of the job, and also has to do with the risk factor, like what could go wrong and what could I lose from that.
Yeah,
that's why I think the sales function really doesn't belong offshore. It goes there often, but it's usually when there's just low quality leads or things like that, and there's the expense around dialing it so high. But that's still a pretty bad consumer experience. There's other functions that are much simpler, and the risk factor of failure is much lower. But when you're looking at opportunity costs around the sales effort, especially really good leads that you've gone out of your way to really develop, and then you're consumer facing, there's branding implications that come with it. It's time at that point to work with somebody like us, and specifically with us, right? But who's going to have a very tailored approach, a white glove approach to your consumer, an intelligent, thought out, strategic approach. And you need to look for that, because one use case, I think we shared this in a previous podcast, we helped somebody, and Carson even posted this on LinkedIn. If you want to find his feed and connect with him. He has this whole experience where this one group was using a Filipino call center, and I love the Philippines, don't get me wrong, but they're using this Filipino call center. They didn't have the technology that we have. They didn't have the expertise that we have. They didn't have the agents that we have. And we 7x'd the amount of revenue generated from those same leads when they sent it to us versus when they send it to this offshore center. So it makes a huge difference if you're doing higher level, higher end, brand sensitive, sort of white glove approaches. Well, you got to put it in the right place.
You just leave money on the table, right? When you're trying that other, maybe less optimized approach. But going back to what you talked about, there's so much to optimize within your business, with your product, your service that you're offering, your sales. You've got PII around your sales process. You probably have specific things that you've taught your team, and you're managing that. You've got KPIs around your sales process. Why have to have, why would you want to try to have to optimize a function that is pretty much agnostic to the vertical that we go into? Like our approach and our call cadences and our scripting processes is built on best practices over 15 years in 25 verticals, right? And it's pretty much the same per vertical. Why would you want to have to optimize that function when there's already so much to optimize within your business, just with your own product and service and sales process?
Yeah, we've already paid the price to learn that.
Yeah.
And it's expensive to learn those things. It takes a lot of time and effort. And that's, we talk about outsourcing. We've talked a little bit about the vendor and partner relationship too. I think when you are going into this sort of engagement, you want to make sure that it's a partner and it's someone who is bought into your success. Like they're not just accomplishing some menial task for you, but they're saying, let's figure this out. Tell us if you're winning. If you're not winning, let's come up with a game plan so that you can win. We can win together. Because that makes a huge difference in the success and the longevity of any engagement, any partnership.
I have a thought exercise for us, guys. I think it'll be a good one.
Okay.
Let's just imagine that we're not at Squeeze. Terrible, I know. And we had to evaluate call centers and say, based off of my previous years of experience of dealing with call centers for this whole entire time, what would identify a top-notch, sales-driven call center that I'm like, that thing that they're doing there, or these three things, that's how I know they're good. Justin, what do you think?
For me, it's a place where the rubber meets the road, right? Like, don't talk the game, but show the game, and that could be anything to do with ethics. That could be with getting results. That could end up being the type of culture that you have, right? The type of people that you are actually onboarding to handle your phone calls is also very important. And I think there's a laundry list of things I can go through, but I think for me, those are the main ones, and that's where you're going to get your results from are those things that, ultimately describe the process of sales. So
what do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I look at maybe what the industry leaders are doing. I think use your network to help vet some of those things out. That can accelerate that learning process. I think looking at the talent pool is really, really important. I know we recently hired for a new position internally, and in the past we've been pretty quick to hire. And in this most recent, it was to an upper management position. We had multiple rounds of interviews with presentations and with culture fit interviews and all of these different things because it's so important. And with selecting a partner for this sort of engagement, I think it is super important that you take your time and that you're thorough, meeting them face to face, seeing the talent pool and taking the time to understand who it is that is going to be representing you.
What do you think, Carson?
I think those are both great points, and I think that really getting to know who they are and what they're all about, probably the breadth of experience that they have, what kind of success have they generated, and in which verticals and things like that, I think can be really key. When you talk about, come visit our operation and see, I worked early in my career for a company that when somebody like a VIP or somebody really important came to town, it was like this big scramble to kind of like make sure everything looked good so that we didn't embarrass ourselves. And, for the most part, if somebody said I'm coming tomorrow, like I would say, great, we'll be there and we'll bring donuts or whatever. We're not going to stress out about it. We're not going to have to pull an all-nighter cleaning up things because it's, a dirty mess or whatever. You have that you work with a group that's just got their act together. And I think that helps, lay the foundation for success and results and all that you guys both hit on.
It's trust, right?
Yeah.
Find people that you trust.
Well, and I agree with everybody. Obviously, those are perfect answers. Mine was, it just kind of popped into my head, what questions are they going to ask me? And it's kind of like what my role is now. Like, what questions do I ask? If somebody sit down and did the proper sales approach, like we talked about in the past, and just let me talk and ask me a bunch of questions, and they ask the right questions. They ask me questions about SOC 2 certifications. They ask me the questions about what are you hoping to accomplish? What is important to you? And just all the right questions that would just all of a sudden make me realize this person knows what they're doing. One, they're selling me right. I can appreciate the game, right? The swagger of it, but I can also appreciate that they're smart enough and experienced enough to know what to ask me. And if they're doing that right, and on top of what you all have said, I think that's a good way of identifying they know what they're talking about. They've asked me the right questions.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
You should be able to feel it too, right? Like walk into a place and whatever feeling overcomes you, like you should know at that point,
Yeah.
is this the place or not, right?
Yeah, like Carson's first job, right?
Yeah. Prime example.
Yeah, for sure.
Talked about that in the last episode. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not a great one. But yeah, we love having people come to our center because that actually happens. They come in, they feel the good vibe. There's a good vibe there. It looks right. It's clean. Like Carson said, we do give them about a day's heads up saying someone's coming, out of courtesy so they know that they're there. But they just say, okay, and they just know. And we make sure there's a nice screen that says, welcome company, to the office. And that's about all we need to do to get ready because we're always ready to go.
I love when we can get people in our office. And I also love going and visiting our partners' offices. I think having a give and take in a partnership is really important too. So that's something that over the past year or two, we've started doing a lot more, is actually traveling out to their offices and spending time with them and, going to dinner and establishing those personal relationships with them, because that's what trust is built on. In the next couple of months, we've got a bunch of clients coming to do in-office visits with us, and we'll show them their teams and we'll introduce them to their agents and their team leads. Because that transparency, we're not trying to hide something behind the curtain. There's nothing behind the curtain. Like, it is what it is. This is our team.
But how faith promoting is that they're going to come to the office and we have no problem with them meeting our call center agents. In fact, we want them to meet our call center agents.
Yeah.
That is so faith promoting into our business and our brand and what we're trying to accomplish. That's really super cool that we get to do that.
And I'll say one more thing about that, Nate, is like the people that we do hire on a sales agent level, that's part of our secret sauce, right? And I'm not going to go into depth, but I think you know what I'm talking about as far as where we're hiring them from, their backgrounds, their drive, and they're not lifetimers, right? They're people who are coming in to accomplish a goal and then moving on.
Well, we've told everybody, they all know they're college kids.
Yeah.
They're smart, they're motivated, they're going to be amazing, they're going to sound right. And because of that, that's kind of where that white glove experience can happen. But we won't tell them what we ask them to identify, whether or not they're smart and motivated and whatever else.
Right.
That is secret sauce.
My
won't
secret
share
sauce.
that.
It's just the feeling that overcomes you in the interview.
You get to sense for him. Like,
Yeah.
He's got the energy.
Yeah.
He's got some crystals in there.
Got the juice.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, good. I thought that was a good thought exercise, right? It kind of helped
That's
us
good,
identify.
Nate. That was good.
Yeah, every once in a while, I got a good idea that's going to come out of this. But yeah, so call centers have such a bad rap, and for good reason. There are bad ones out there, like the one in Detroit that you started with in the grimy little hole in the wall sort of place. And I've been around call centers for a long time too, way more than I ever thought I would. Also, I didn't really anticipate that this would be a part of my life. Got out of college and became a banker, and I thought that was going to be great. And then just found myself in a world where call centers just exist all the time. And some of them are super gross and some of them are really good. And you can tell when people care about their product. They take their time. They work hard. They have reporting in place. They're trying to constantly make things better. And it makes a huge difference. And I think the consumer can feel it for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's exciting for me that with what we've built as an outsourced partner, we have actually helped generate over $1 billion now of transactions for our clients that we work with. And we've generated billions and billions of dollars worth of mortgage loans, right? So when I'm talking about the revenue that we generate, it's really more like the mortgage loan revenue that comes from generating a new mortgage versus the billions in actual fundings that have happened.
Yeah, it was fundings. It'd be way more than that.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different
It's pretty fun. We put together quarterly business reviews, and as part of that, our partners will provide their sales data, and it is really, really fun to see the impact that we've had on these buckets of leads that they had never even worked before or even thought to work before. And we're able to come in with a strategy and say, hey, let's attack this, let's try this, and let's implement this kind of trick on the cadence. And, we launched one about 3 weeks ago with a very large home services brand, and it was a bucket of leads that they had never been able to call before due to a bunch of reasons, one of them being bandwidth internally. And within 3 weeks, they'd already closed 500 deals from our efforts. And it was a bucket of leads that had just been untouched.
Yeah.
There's gold in there, right? You just got to find it and have the strategies to
Well,
implement it.
that reminds me of another brand we brought on kind of in the end of spring, beginning of summer. A big nationwide brand. They have a good jingle. Let's just leave it at that, But they had this bucket of leads that they were definitely not contacting. And it was basically mid-funnel people that they've already approached, and it didn't, matriculate down into a sale, or even some leads that they kind of abandoned. They're like, we really don't think there's anything in here, but we'll let you guys take a look. And we're just demolishing it. Like, we were doing so awesome. And they're selling so many more deals than they did before on this bucket of unused leads over and over again. It proves out. But I think it comes down to, obviously, the way we run things, right?
Having the right partner.
Yeah.
So we call ourselves Squeeze and not caller.
Yeah, that's right.
That's another thing I love about Squeeze, is that we're celebrating our brand's wins, right? Like, we're helping them win.
Yeah.
It's not our product, right? And if you think about that, like, that's kind of crazy that we celebrate helping other brands get to where they want to be.
Yeah.
And that's who you want to be working with.
Our key metrics are our partners' key metrics.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good feeling to be that way. And I think part of that has to do with our structure. When you're working with BPOs and they're on an hourly rate, it's kind of different.
There's no incentive for them to perform.
There's no incentive for performance. When you're working with a Squeeze, we're 100% performance-based. We don't have onboarding costs. We don't have any extra hidden fees or whatever. It's just pure cost per call, cost per appointment sort of metrics. But then we're immediately aligned to be what you need us to be, which is driving revenue. So we make money when you make money. And it naturally creates a proper relationship in this industry field. Like, if we're doing customer service, that'd be a whole different story, right? But we're not. That's not our core competency. That's not what we're looking to do. What we're looking to do is drive sales. We're leaders in the sales experience, right? And if we can generate way more sales opportunities, then you're going to win, we're going to win, and it's going to be great because we're properly aligned, because we structured our business properly for this sort of work that we're doing right now.
I think that's a great point, Nate. Think about, we've been approached many times by staffing agencies to, hey, we want to provide some employees for you. How many people do you need to hire in your next class? We'll get 10 people there, kind of a thing. And, we tried that one time, and I immediately knew what we were going to get, is what we got. And it was, a bunch of people showed up. They didn't know what the job was about. They weren't properly vetted. They were just there for the paycheck to clock in for the company and clock out. And when you're using a BPO that you're paying hourly, that's exactly what you're getting, is just a company that's going to staff to a certain number of people or bodies and seats.
Churn and burn.
They don't necessarily care if they're going to be effective. It's just how many hours can they bill. And we've never had that kind of model. And I love that, because we really invest in the product, your product and service, making sure that we put someone on the phone that's properly trained by Justin and his team. They've been taught about the product or service. They're following the right process. And the whole goal is to generate a transaction. And that's why, going back to, we're not really a cost, we're more of an investment, because whatever you're paying us, if you're paying us $1, we should return 10 to you. That's really like a metric that we kind of look at as like $10 back for every $1 you spend with us. And that seems like a no-brainer for me from any business's standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. And when we know we've got the right campaign, it's exactly like that. That the measurement is about that 1 to 10 sort of thing. But we also recognize that it typically leads to some very happy agents. Our agents who perform the best and are the happiest are on the campaigns that are functioning the best, right? Because there's joy, I guess, or in the success that you're experiencing on the phone.
There's a momentum.
Yeah, there's a momentum. The more transfers per hour you're able to produce, the more confidence you bring, and you just really start to drive. And I think I saw a stat today that you should share, Justin, that really highlights this. Justin, what percentage of the new hire group, we just hired a huge group of new hires, what percent of them were either referrals or returning people to come work with us again?
45%.
That's enormous. 45% of this huge group that we just brought on.
It was almost 40 agents.
Yeah, that's a big chunk of agents in your 1 week class, right?
Yeah.
45% were new hires or referrals, because these agents are happy.
Yeah.
And they're happy because we've got the right fit. We have the right clients, and they're happy too. So it works really well.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think, guys? Should we do some final thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay, so my final thought on this is that you outsource when it is smarter, more efficient, and more proficient for you to use somebody else instead of having to create this yourself. And specifically within the sales industry, if you don't have to relearn everything or recreate everything, and somebody can do it for you in a low cost, or I shouldn't say low cost, but an efficient, scalable, predictable way, that's the right time to outsource. And I think we represent that for sure.
I would say let specialists specialize and prioritize your consumer interactions when you're looking to outsource or use a strategic partner.
Yeah. What do you think, Justin?
I think pick a place that's going to celebrate your brand and help you to go win. And anybody should want that, whatever it is that they're representing.
Yeah. Carson?
When I think about this, I think about like our SaaS solution that we use for our managing our dialing and call cadences and things like that. It's a pretty well-known platform that's widely used. And we've never been able to effectively hire someone that has used that product to the full extent that we do, right? So when we put on it, if we needed to hire somebody to help in managing that platform, we could probably find somebody that's used it before, but not someone that's going to be as effective as we need them to be and that we would expect them to be, and as effective as we are with it today. And so just thinking that you can go buy that platform, plug it in, hire some people and throw them on the phone, you're really like kind of naive a little bit, and it's a lot more than that. And there's a lot that goes into it. So using someone like us, using a partner like Squeeze, or maybe a different company that is similarly optimized, there's so much to optimize that just, relying on someone that knows what they're doing is important. So,
yeah.
And be picky.
And be picky. You can be picky.
Don't be afraid to be picky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you've been watching the Juice Consumer Direct podcast. I'm Nate Clegg here with Jake Thorpe, Carson Poppenger, and Justin Jump.
Any comments and questions, leave them below and we will make sure to get to them.